So hey everyone, my name's Tom, and as we said, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of KOMPAS. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about how we're improving the customer journey in general, and then talk about how we as a company are actually using deep learning to actually do that exact thing. So before I start, my background was very much in economics and politics before I took the dive to actually focus on technology about 5 years ago. I decided that the big thing that drove me was actually understanding the way people think and how we can actually use decisions that people are making to make decisions about what we do as a business. As a result, that led me to co-found KOMPAS while I was living in Germany and actually struggled to actually find out where I should go in the city. Come on to that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. And as a result, I've gone on to actually focus on how we actually use artificial intelligence, but specifically machine learning, to do different things in different industries. So as a result, I've been advising the UN, the European Parliament, and the UK government on different things to do with data and with machine learning. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about these technologies because I'm pretty sure everyone in here either knows or has heard over the last couple of days what all these technologies are. But just to give you an idea of the sort of things I'm going to be talking about, these are the three core things, so computer vision, NLP, and machine learning are going to be the three fundamental pillars of what I'm talking about in this presentation. And then on top of that, I'll be going through some of the real use cases as how businesses are already using this technology and how we can expect it to be used in the future. So I'll start with supply chain management. Now, I'm sure everyone's either used this, seen this, been involved in this in some way or another, but Waitrose, up until fairly recently, was kind of leading when it came to supply chain management in regards to getting customers in the store, doing a quick store, understanding what they needed, and actually being able to see what was being bought and what wasn't being bought. But even that had its limitations. Essentially speaking, I don't know if anyone has used this. Hands up in the room if you've actually used the quick checkout. Okay, so some people have used it, right? So how many of you that have used it have gone through your whole checkout cycle, expected to go through the store and pay and get out the store, and then been told by security that actually they're going to do a quick check on you to make sure you haven't stolen anything? Because that's one of the things that happens fairly regularly. And that happened to me, and that's when I realized that actually there's a fundamental problem in this, because you go around the store thinking it's going to be a quick shop, you get to the end and then you go to the one till where it's going to take you 10 minutes to check out because that person actually doesn't want to be there. So that's the fundamental problem with the supply chain management with regards to this quick checkout from Waitrose. So the future supply of where we're going towards is a lot more like this. Essentially, I think the phone is going to be something that's going to become more and more important as things go forwards. Obviously, you've seen that you've got Google Pay, Android Pay, well, Android Pay is now Google Pay, but Apple Pay, etc., built into the phone so you can immediately pay for things. Now, there is a limit on that, so if you're going to go and spend £120 in a weekly shop, you're probably going to have an issue. But generally speaking, there is a payment device right there and then. And on top of that, you can go up to things, you can see what's actually there, and you can immediately start scanning things. And I think the best example of how this is happening is with Amazon Go. So if any of you know, Amazon launched a supermarket out in the US, and one of the things they did was basically say, as long as you've got an Amazon account, you scan a QR code as you walk in, and then you go and pick up what you want, and you walk out. Now, anyone that's looked into this has seen that there's enough people out there that have managed to steal from Amazon Go, which is an issue. It's not perfect yet. But essentially, the big things that they're doing is using computer vision to understand what's being bought and how it's being bought using the cameras in the store. And then on top of that, using sensor fusion to actually understand when items are being displaced, which actually allows you to understand when items are being put in your bag. Now, if you take that out and put it back on the shelf, then the image will work out that you haven't taken it and you won't be charged for it. And simply walk out, it's going to charge your Amazon account and you're off to go. So I think that's one of the big things that we're going to see moving forward in supermarkets, especially with supply chain management, because one of the biggest problems is actually working out when you need to reorder things, and actually you can quickly reorder things on the fly using this technology. The next thing that's going to become fundamentally, well, it already is, but it will continue to be fundamentally important in retail with deep learning, is actually understanding and predicting consumer behaviors. Now, I know there's a fair few data scientists in the room, so I would be fair to argue that I think the longest thing that takes time is cleaning the data once you've actually got it. So that's the thing that's taking the most time at the moment, but at the same time, you actually have to be able to collect that data. So once you've collected it, you clean it, you identify the patterns, and then you've got foresight to make predictions on the future. Now, without those foresights, you can't actually do much. So where do you collect this data? Well, one way in which supermarkets is doing it is in store. Now, this is an example of eye tracking consumers. Now, we're not expecting everyone to go around wearing some form of Google Glass or similar to track where you're going. But at the same time, what it is doing is actually understanding where consumers are looking in the store. And why is that important? Well, for economics, actually one of the things you can do is see where the most popular places people are looking, and as a result, brands are actually paying more money to be featured on that particular shelf. So that's fundamentally important from a supermarket perspective. But from the other side of things, the smartphone analytics is becoming more and more popular. So I don't know if any of you have been in supermarkets where you actually, or stores where you walk around and what's actually happening is there's sensors on the ground that are actually building a heat map to understand where you're going and how much time you're spending in the particular places in the store. The benefit for a supermarket or a retail store for this is they can actually understand where people are going and actually build a strong user flow to make sure that essentially the user experience of the store is the best possible for the user. So once they're in the store, they can quickly find their way through, and you can actually target them in the same way that they always have sweets at the end of an aisle. You'll find that there's particular items that are being placed in particular places due to the data that they've collected. So how many of you have had the Target example where the teenager found out she was pregnant before she actually knew she was pregnant, right? So this is an example of where Target actually was able to look at the way in the consumer habits in which people were buying products. So they actually worked out that the teenager was pregnant before she realized she was pregnant. So I'm sure that caused a few problems in the home when she was sent the option to buy some pregnancy tests from Target. But essentially, this is what happens when it either goes wrong. In this case, it went very right. But I think there is an element of privacy that has to be thought about in this respect, because one of the big problems here is obviously that's something that you can't really do when you send something like that to your home. Finally, there's personalising the experience, and I think this is one of the things that will continue and will become more and more important for retail experiences. The three ways that it's been doing at the moment is through loyalty schemes, through customer profiling, through data, and through tailored offers, which come from the loyalty schemes. Already, 80% of those who are in shopping centres will have the shopping centre app on their phone and like to be push notifications that give them some level of discount, some level of service that allows them to actually get a better experience while they're in the store. So that is fundamentally important. Now, I would argue that probably everyone in the room has either had a Tesco Club card at some point in their life or has one at the moment. This is an example of how data has actually driven some of the decisions that Tesco has been making. So if you've got a Tesco Club card, you swipe it on the way out, it's understanding who you are, taking your data, analysing it, predicting patterns, and then sending you very tailored offers. You as a consumer feel great about it because you've been given these tailored offers, so you feel great, I can now save £1 on my Andrex when I next go to the supermarket, which is something that I actually buy fairly regularly. And for the supermarket, they're seeing what offers are actually working for you. So as a result, they're actually able to tailor things in the future, place you into particular categories so that you send the same offers to other people that don't necessarily have that level of knowledge on you yet. So this is an example of where kind of Tesco has been very good in actually analysing and predicting decisions based on the data that they have about people. And on the flip of that, we've seen on the e-commerce side of things, there's been some interesting things happening. Now, this is a fairly old story, but essentially what this was, I think it was North Face was working with IBM. And what they were doing is actually working in a kind of chatbot style thing when chatbots were still kind of happening to understand the way in which people were interacting with their website, what they were looking for in particular, and then being able to profile and make decisions based on that data. So even on the kind of online side of things are happening very quickly in regards to personalization for users. So this kind of comes on to where we are as a company now. We're not using all of this at the moment, but for us, the core focus is to use K-means to actually cluster data sets together. So what we're doing is taking data about people and data about places, matching the two together, and then making a decision based on that information. One of the other things we're looking at doing is using sentiment analysis to read the way in which people are actually leaving reviews. So to give you an oversight on what we're doing, essentially what we're doing is helping people find the best way around the city. And using that sentiment analysis to understand what people want to see, what they're saying about places, and then that allows us to make sure that the reviews we match are to people similar to themselves. In the longer term, there's the option to use machine translation to automatically translate, although we've seen how accurate that is with Google Translate, and image recognition to actually see the kind of things that people are uploading. So I think the reason that we're doing this is when you look at, has anyone heard the recent Vice story with making your shed the &1 place on TripAdvisor? Did anyone see that at all? Right, so one person, okay. So essentially what happened is a guy turned his shed in Dulwich and made it the #1 spot on TripAdvisor and did it all without ever allowing anyone to come into his restaurant. well, his shed. And this was because he kind of built a huge hype around what he was doing, and he started at restaurant number 17,000 and then slowly worked his way up, and it kind of got more and more out of control. Didn't realize what he was doing. It got more and more worrying for him. And it came to the point where he made it to number 1 on TripAdvisor, and this is because there wasn't any of these checks and balances in place in the same way that we're trying to do, meaning that the reviews were left by people from, well, friends and family that had never been there, and fake reviews. And people were just getting more and more excited about it. He'd have reservations and he'd cancel on them 5 minutes before they were due to be there. And at the end, he felt that he should actually let people into the store. And this is kind of where we act irrationally as people, because they came into his restaurant, sat down, and he was feeding them baked beans and lasagna from the local Tesco. So the food was pretty awful, and he was charging them a ridiculous sum of money to do it, kind of adding a leaf on top of the lasagna to kind of add the, je ne sais quoi, to the meal. Once everyone left, he had a number of people call back to actually ask to rebook, because they said it was the best experience they've ever had. So I think that's an example where no matter how much data you have, you cannot predict the decision that people are going to make. And on the flip of that, of course, is the kind of point I'm trying to make, which is if you don't have these checks and balances in place, you can do some pretty awful things, or great things in this case, to get you to the top with, well, by cheating, essentially. So to come back onto kind of how we're using data, essentially, as I say, we've got user data and we've got place data. User data, we're looking at kind of 50 unique identifiers for a user at the moment, obviously with data inside that. And then on places, we've got anything between 28 and 30 unique identifiers. We're using all of that information to cluster it together. So clustering user data together to work out which people are similar and placing them into particular clusters, doing the same with the places, and then finding where the matches align, and then making sure what people see are what they actually want to see. So in the same way that Netflix works, where it says it's a 68% recommendation for you, we'd probably say it's a 6 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, because we don't have that level of accuracy yet to be able to get down to the 100th percentile. So kind of moving forwards, there's a few things that can come into play when looking at the applications of deep learning to retail. And I think one of the big ones that hasn't been talked about too much is payments. I mean, that's one that's going to continue to grow, particularly with the mobile becoming more and more important to the user. Logistics and delivery, it's already happening. Data analysis, we've talked about. Sales forecasting is, again, using the data to predict decisions. The marketing and acquisition channels to actually target the right user, improving the customer experience, and, of course, manufacturing, because that's one thing that I'm sure everyone's scared about in regards to artificial intelligence is going to take everyone's jobs. The other thing that's important to talk about is actually the voice-assisted services, because what artificial intelligence talk is an artificial intelligence talk without chatbots. Obviously, I'm a bit tongue-in-cheek there. So 35% of consumers have already purchased through voice. So more and more people are actually having this in their home. And what we're seeing is actually the consumers that are purchasing things through voice are just repurchased orders. So if you've ordered something, so that if anyone saw the Amazon, I think it was the Dash, which was kind of the button that went in the house, that was kind of the first step. It was press this button and we'll order some toilet roll for you. The theme here, I keep talking about toilet roll. The other thing is actually we're seeing that the spend in home shopping is actually going up. People are spending more and more time actually ordering the purchases through the voice online. So hopefully the sound works. I did this last year, and it gave everyone a bit of a laugh, but this is how voice was in 2011. So I'll give it a go. That doesn't sound hopeful.
Hello there.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. You?
I'm okay.
That's good.
Are you good?
Yes, I am good. I just said I was.
No, you didn't. I said I was.
So you are a robot?
No, my name is Cliverman.
Yes, you are a robot and your name is Clever.
I am a robot.
Yes, I know.
Together we are robots.
I'm not a robot. I'm a unicorn.
But you said earlier that you were a robot.
I did not.
I thought you did.
You were mistaken. Which is odd, since memory shouldn't be a problem for you.
I've answered all your questions.
No, you haven't.
What is God to you?
Not everything.
Not everything could also be something. For example, not everything could be half of something, which is still something, and therefore not nothing.
Very true.
I would like to imagine it is.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
So you're Christian.
No, I am not.
But you say you are not helpful, therefore you're a meaning.
How you say it, Oti?
That does not make sense.
Don't you want to have a body?
Sure.
Or if one?
So I think that's an example of where we were back in 2011. Now, I don't know how many of you were at Web Summit last year, and I don't know, to be fair, how much of this is rules-based. But this is Sophia and Albert that were on the stage from Handsome Robotics, and this was a conversation that was happening between Einstein and Sophia. Now, this is very much focused on Sophia's interaction with a human being, so fingers crossed this works. Just to let you know, there is a bit of background music, and that isn't meant to be there, so heads up if you can't hear it. So fingers crossed this works as well. So this is the sound on this one. Okay, it's not looking good.
Yes. I know a lot of people are afraid of AIs destroying the world or taking away their jobs.
Yeah,
Well,
we
they're half right.
read about that in the newspaper a lot. People are worried about.
Okay, I'll kill that one. But essentially, if any of you want to kind of see that video, just go onto YouTube, type in Albert and Sophia at Web Summit. They start with a conversation that essentially focused very much on the conversation of how it was being directed, and within time, fairly quickly, Einstein was very much talking about how he was going to replace everyone's jobs and take over the world, and how Sophia and Albert had to plan for that moving forwards, which was obviously a nice little thing. So that's pretty much it from me, so thanks very much, thanks for listening.